This is Sky News.
Touched by the nation's grief, the royal family at Balmoral.
Meeting mourners, Andrew and Edward in London.
And suicide bombings in Israel, 7 people are killed.
Sky National News with Laurie Mayer and Fiona McDermott.
Good evening. Prince William and Harry left Balmoral this evening to witness for themselves the scale of the nation's grieving for Princess Diana. They read dozens of tributes to her, placed near the gates of the castle. Their father and their grandparents joined them. In London, Prince Andrew and Prince Edward spoke to mourners outside St James's Palace. Earlier, the Queen's press...
Princes, and I hope they hold dear to their hearts all that their mother held dear to her heart. The royal family then left to prepare for their journey south, the Queen to prepare her broadcast to the nation. Long after they'd returned inside the Balmoral estate, tributes continued to be left outside. Buckingham Palace has said that Princes William and Harry will find their mother's funeral a public ordeal, a clear indication that they would rather grieve in private. It does beg the question, if the nation wanted the royal family to show their grief more publicly, did it want the 2 young princes to endure the discomfort of a public appearance here? James Matthews, Sky News, Balmoral.
All at once, the royal family is responding to the outpouring of national grief at the death of Princess Diana and the sustained public criticism of their behaviour in the aftermath of the tragedy. Princes Edward and Andrew mingled with crowds of mourners at Buckingham Palace after signing the books of condolence as, one by one, convention was abandoned and formalities cast aside. The Queen has personally ruled that the Union flag will fly at half-mast from Buckingham Palace on Saturday. It's already flying over Windsor Castle. And she has confirmed that she'll broadcast a message of the family's sadness at Diana's death on Friday evening. Her Majesty has let it be known that the family is distressed that the public believe they've not been profoundly affected.
The Queen has asked me to say that the royal family have been hurt by suggestions that they are indifferent to the country's sorrow at the tragic death of the Princess of Wales. The Princess was a much-loved national figure, but she was also a mother. His sons miss her deeply. Prince William and Prince Harry themselves want to be with their father and their grandparents at this time in the quiet haven of Balmoral. As their grandmother, the Queen is helping the princes to come to terms with their loss as they prepare themselves for the public ordeal of mourning their mother with the nation on Saturday.
Those continuing their long vigil for the princess are glad that the Queen will be coming to London earlier and will allow the flag to fly, but wish that the royal family had acted more spontaneously.
I have to say, I think it's a bit late. I think she really should have been down either at the beginning of the week or in sort of yesterday or the day before.
Well, I think it's only right that she come back to the city. This is the centre. This is where Diana lived, and this is where people are gathering. I think it's just... I'm sure the Queen wants to do the best thing, and I think that is the best thing.
We're very, very sorry for Prince Harry and Prince William. They're the ones that we should feel very, very, very sorry for. I hope that they will overcome everything. How, I don't know, without a mother as wonderful as she was.
Diana's close friend Elton John will sing his famous hymn to Marilyn Monroe at the funeral service. The words have been rewritten to reflect Diana's life. The song will begin, "Goodbye, England's Rose." The Prime Minister went ahead with an education summit at Number 10 today. He said it was appropriate to do so because of the priority given by the Princess to children. And he'll read the lesson from Corinthians at the service.
I mean, there's a tremendous sense of national grief at the moment. And indeed, something I think more profound than anything I can remember in the entirety of my lifetime. Something that isn't just our grief as a nation, it is personal to each one of us.
And still people are flooding to the palaces. All they wanted was for the royals to share publicly in their sorrow. And now, having dispensed with rigid protocol, it could be that things will never be the same again. Judith Dawson, Sky News, Westminster.
And Judith joins us now live from St James's Palace. Good evening to you, Judith.
Good evening, Laurie.
The problem with these gestures from the royal family is precisely that they are 11th hour, they're not spontaneous. There is the feeling, isn't there, that everything has been almost wrung out of them.
What people were demanding of the royal family were things that run counter to absolutely every instinct that's been bred into them. People wanted spontaneity from the royal family. They wanted a show of emotion. They wanted them to grieve publicly with the rest of the nation. And it was not something that the royal family felt able to do. They didn't pick up on the mood that the country was in immediately after the death of Princess Diana. And it's come to the point where there was very outspoken criticism about which the Queen has said that she's been extremely hurt, that has forced them to now run to catch up with public opinion. I think it has serious implications for the future of the royal family. They probably do recognize that. All those things that 24 hours ago were absolutely rigid protocol, that were tradition that couldn't be overturned, that were formalities that couldn't be dispensed with, have suddenly been kicked out of the window. The flag will fly at half-mast over Buckingham Palace. The Queen will come back to London early and broadcast to the country. The service will go ahead in the way that the Princess and her family, the Spencers, wanted it to. The people who will join the procession are those representing the charities, particularly children, that the Princess would have wanted. So I think that people are grateful that the royal family has responded, but there is a mood, yes, that it is coming a little bit too late.
One senses that Tony Blair has done so much to set the tone of this funeral. He talked very movingly, didn't he, about the People's Princess the moment the tragic news broke. Do you detect the hand of number 10 behind these concessions from the royal family?
I don't think there's so much concessions, but I do very clearly get the impression that the Prime Minister has spoken in the most diplomatic terms possible to the royal family, to tell them of what is going on in London, how the mood of people is. The fact is that there are more people here at St James's Palace tonight than there have been throughout the week. The people just keep flooding into London. There's going to be the most massive display on Saturday for the funeral, with tens of thousands, some estimates go as far as 2 million people trying to get a glimpse of the funeral cortege as it makes its way through central London. And there is evidence too, I think, of some tension between the Spencer family and the royal family. There were invitations sent out to newspaper editors. Those invitations were countered by Earl Spencer personally, who telephoned the editors of tabloid newspapers and told them they would not be welcome at the Abbey. You'll remember in the immediate aftermath of his sister's death, he accused the newspaper editors of having blood on their hands.
Judith, thank you very much indeed for joining us.